Welcome, my friends. This is Archangel. Did you guys catch the game? Yeah, so I have never really been a sports fan, especially the American Big Three: baseball, basketball, and football. You could expand this group to other sports, such as hockey, or the world's number one sport, soccer. Any game where males group to compete with other groups of males. You see, the male fanaticism regarding sports, especially American football, has always nagged at me, and I never could identify with it. I dislike football, yet I never really knew why. Now that I'm liberated, I have clarity of reason, and I see that everything has its purpose. Indeed, there was a reason sports rubbed me the wrong way all this time, because it is indicative of a larger scourge. Now, playing sports is one thing. I understand the desire to compete and the benefits of physical exercise and skill honing, such as hand-eye coordination, etc. Yet the fanatic males that follow sports like chicks follow wallets, this group is made up largely of the gynocentrically entrained. Now, if you personally like sports, that's fine. Yes, you can be red pill and like sports. And so the following discussion does not pertain to you. Yet, I will wager that awakened sports enthusiasts amount to a handful at best, while the majority of male sports fans out there are simps and manginas. Let's see why. Okay, quick analogy. Blow-off valves, diversionary waterways, overflow tubes, and sports. These things may seem unrelated, but they all have similar import of purpose. They are meant to control reaction. You see, we need to control reactions so damage or loss is not experienced. For example, you have an overflow of water. Diversionary waterways prevent damage from excess buildup. Your engine heats as internal combustion occurs. You have coolant to control the temperature of your engine. Yet, in that process, the coolant itself is heated, and heated liquid in a closed radiator system creates pressure, and this pressure must be captured in a controlled fashion to prevent loss or damage, or mess, hence the radiator overflow tank. Nearly any and every industrialized steam-pressured system has numerous such valves that trip when a certain pressure threshold has been reached to vent excess pressure and prevent damage to the entire system. Action, reaction. You heat liquids, you build pressure. Now, either you allow events to precipitate according to entropy and deal with the damage and mess, or you try and control the instigated reactions. We push materials to the limits, setting off processes that, unless controlled, will lead to damage, physical hazard, loss, and a whole lot of mess due to blown pipes, resultant from no safety valves placed to bypass pressure when they escalate to a certain threshold. Look at waterways. Without these, excessive moisture would have no direction to flow and thus become destructive. So they have proactively planned for the direction of any anticipated excess water thresholds to prevent damage to the city. It's all control. We need to control the reactions that we precipitate and vent them in useful directions so as to avoid damage, loss, and mess. And for this discussion, sports is such a method of directing pressure buildup. Males? They have such greatness, ambition, and innate infinite creativity inside, which thirsts for expression. When you stymie male greatness, when you demean and censor males, when you abuse and reduce their value to that of discardable shovels, you precipitate a series of events which will lead to an undesirable reaction, an imbalance, as his creative forces are repressed to service females, and thus pressure begins to build inside that male. And when you have a population of individuals deprived of their beauty and worth, disenfranchised from their greatness and used as disposable Kleenexes, you most definitely build pressure within these miserable male hordes. Resentment that, if not directed, will build to very unpleasant conclusions. Instead of a single disgruntled male climbing the clock tower with a rifle, imagine a population of millions of angry males just as disgruntled climbing the same tower. So, we build pressure in males and the collective male psyche by devaluing and disposing of males. That is the truth of our gynocentric world. We devalue males in order to justify their disposability. Now, this process of devaluation has protocols and processes which stymie male greatness. When we stymie male greatness, the energy and vitality that is that greatness needs release, lest we spawn a population of unstable Unabombers seeking justice. Thus, we either control their emotion and vent their angst buildup, or suffer cultural damage. We must control males' inner reactions to the suppression of their inner greatness and creativity and the obliteration of their worth and beauty. Otherwise, we will have a problem if we don't direct the exhaust gases produced by our collective combustion of male worth and value. We'll have a whole lot of shovels going postal on us. Not acceptable. So that's where sports comes in. It is the blow-off valve to release pressure buildup and direct anxious energy that might otherwise lead to mischief. I have observed that sports, especially football, is like our culture's storm drains to capture any deluge of males needing to express their inner suppression. It is an overflow tank to capture subconscious male outrage at being emasculated everywhere outside the confines of that game. So, wives, girlfriends, mothers, the vaginisty, all allow males to indulge in sports fanaticism as a necessary evil, the price of doing gynocentric business. You see, we abuse and use males for their protection, their provision, their lives. This builds up pressure within males, and we need to allow them to vent every once in a while so they will continue to behave. Thus, we begrudgingly tolerate males getting boisterous and chest-thumpy around sports, and then, when they have vented their inner turmoil caused by being unloved and used, after all that, after the game is over, they will go back to being shovels with a list of honeydews given to him by the boss that he needs to accomplish. That is why society tolerates male sports, and why games are such an inbred part of society. It's not a signal of male privilege, as everybody so naively asserts. The ubiquity of male sports is actually a sign of male disposability. Males have to do to be relevant, and males competing is males doing to gain visibility. And when one player gets injured, another takes their place. This mirrors the male plight. The universality of sports around the world, soccer for instance, is proof positive of the rampant plague gynocentrism has become not simply in one country, but on planet Earth. The ubiquity of sports is flagrant evidence of male devaluation. It demonstrates how much we abuse males and dispose of them by virtue of a species-wide blow-off valve, commonly called sports. Males at war or fighting for their lives, this is actually competition. Males playing a sports game is entertainment. And one of males' social functions, besides protecting and providing for females, is entertainment. Males are to compete with one another for our entertainment, whether it be in gladiatorial arenas for the refined Roman citizenry, or in spandex and football helmets for the general populace doormat eating buffalo wings on his couch. Sports are pushed onto males from the earliest of ages in school, where the boys in basketball or football are looked upon favorably by girls and teachers alike. Males are pressed into the paradigm of competing to ready them for their lives as shovels, where they will compete with other males for female attention, for resource, for reproductive access, for everything. Yet, unlike sports, males will have to compete for themselves in life. There is no team to back them up. The only team all these single males play for is VU, Vaginisty United. Thus, we allow these shovels, wallets, and shields to paint their faces, trash talk, eat junk food, bore everyone into slumber with talk of sports statistics at the office, at church, on the phone, immediately busting into discussions over injury reports or player rosters when you and the wife meet Bob and his wife in the spice aisle of the supermarket. Such is the unconscious greeting of two emasculated slaves. Females will even feign football sympathies or team-specific fanaticism as a way to keep tabs on the boys and make sure they are behaving and towing the vaginisty line while they yell at the TV. Oh, no. Males cannot simply be left to vent their nervous energy alone. Nope. They need a chaperone to monitor them while they are allowed their hour or two of man time. Females get into following sports to monitor males and the communications between them. If they trash talk opposing teams, that's fine. If they stray from the script of sports talk into non-approved conversational areas, such as female criticism, this is unacceptable and must be reported back to the hive. Sports is the mother-approved venue for venting any male energy that the vagina dynasty has failed to kill off in any particular male. Sports is a sad reminder of male servitude. It's ironic that I write this on the eve of Super Bowl Sunday, yet the Super Bowl is not a stamp of male dominance, but rather a sad reminder of male servitude and emasculation to the point that they only get to be males for a few hours while watching the game. The lecherous vaginasty lets males have this day of subjugation celebration, and males are so desperate for creative expression, free of emasculation, that even non-sports fans, guys who don't even like football, will watch this ridiculous, over-the-top male enslavement celebration and machismo exaggeration spectacle that we call the Super Bowl. This is a good thing, because we still program males with gynocentrism in the commercials or with subtleties like players wearing anything pink. Males will watch sports in attempts to try and feel like they have some sort of powerful primal roar left in their devalued vocal cords. It's embarrassing to see males act like such ill-mannered buffoons around sports, and I surmise this as overcompensation. Males are so abused, so devalued, so emasculated throughout the year that when they get this couple hours of freedom, they go crazy and act the fool. They try to exaggerate all the things that they think masculinity is before that window closes and they have to go back to being a servant to the woman and a doormat for society for the rest of the year. And this, I surmise, is why males follow multiple sports, so they have more of the year covered, where they can get away from the nagging and emasculation rather than just a few months with a single sport. However, masculinity is not about burping or farting or painting your beer belly in team colors, or chomping on wings, or pretending that you don't know what an indoor voice is. But when whip males get together, they try to convince themselves and each other that they still have that eye of the tiger. So they try to be the loudest, crudest, chest-thumpingest, gluttonous gorillas that they can act like, to compensate for the fact that they are simpering shovels to women and society the rest of the time. I see sports, especially football, embraced by an overwhelming number of traditionalist, conservative, religious males, who coincidentally are being bled dry 24/7 by the lecherous wife and a demanding brood of a dozen dependents, made possible because God commands that he pop out children beyond his means. Birth control is a sin. These sad males try to escape for a few minutes on the weekend into a ball game to entertain the fantasy that he is still a wild stallion, powerful and free, instead of a broken horse, a potty-trained house husband that spends his days fastened to an unbearably heavy carriage plowing the fields. And the players that he watches in these modern-day gynocentric substitutes for gladiatorial combat, these baseball or football or basketball players, they are no better off than the feminized manginas watching at home. These players making large bucks, who have their own apparel lines, who drive cool cars. They also seek female approval. They desire stardom so that they may be rich and prove their alpha status in the eyes of all. They seek fame so they can receive female affection from supermodels in exclusive clubs. Yet they are still male and still disposable elements of society. They are still expected to protect and provide for females. Many sports figures or famous males are supporting some gold digger or paying insanely high child support or alimony. These sports heroes are manginas and white knights just like the general cattle population. They simply act a little more alpha, but even alphas are slaves on the vaginasty plantation. Alpha is a role within gynocentrism and male disposability. Alpha is not cool or heroic. They are gynocentric slaves, just as betas and the rest of the Y-chromosome shovels who exist to enable female entitlement through service and death. That's why males like wrestling or boxing or UFC. They get to vent their frustration over being disposable tools onto males in the ring, enacting violence on one another. In fact, I postulate that this is why males foist any type of violence onto one another. This is why males want to fight when they get drunk. All the frustration they must swallow when they have their politically correct female-approved face on in public, all of this comes rushing out with the help of inebriating liquids. The slaves can't take out their frustration on their slave masters, females, so they fight amongst themselves as a means of pressure release. Modern sports is a control mechanism, plain and simple, to prevent the masses of psychological male eunuchs from building up too much pressure and snapping. We can't abide the shovels going postal. That might adversely affect their compliance to following directions and continuing to protect and provide for the superior infantilized female populace. Luckily, some time ago, we figured out that we do not have to take the bits out of their mouths if we merely allow them to run free for a few minutes in a gated pasture to excise some of that repressed energy, and we call this gated pasture sports. Nearly every single last male I have ever known who is a sports fanatic has been, in some way, a self-proclaiming slave to the vaginisty in one form or fashion. Yet my awakening has changed my observations. I do not see males getting crazy over sports anymore. I see males trying to seek temporary shelter from the deluge of cruel devaluation they have willingly surrendered to outside of the television. I have never been much of a sports fan, and now I find it curious that I never took to sports, and I now rail against male devaluation, seeking to liberate males from disposability. Coincidence? Whatever the reason, I am not an emasculated shovel that needs to vent expanding pressures of female servitude into some female-approved overflow tank called sports. I do not need to seek token remasculation in sports, especially the American three: basketball, baseball, and football. Now, I know that I am painting with a big brush here, and will invoke the ire of many with these observations. I do not mean to disparage sports fans. Hey, what you enjoy is fine with me. Yet, once you really analyze this, these observations strike nerves because of their accuracy. I feel sorry for the enslaved males, especially the deluded alphas that accept this pathetic substitute for genuine power and freedom of liberation from devaluation. I can't tell you how many white knights and manginas I have known who have buried their miserable vestiges of ambition in sports or fantasy leagues or office pools over some game. Some manginas are so whipped that they don't even pretend to like sports. They have no masculine pressures left to vent, and they are happy simply lying at their master's feet by the fire. Other times, I observe males getting loud and proud over sports with the guys. Then I see them later pushing the stroller behind the missus with a diaper bag slung over one shoulder. The epidemic of male devaluation and the popularity of football, for instance, is no fluke. It's not even a mercy afforded you by your gynocentric superiors because they care about you. The vaginisty only endorses sports to benefit themselves. It's a control measure to prevent interruption of service, namely your service to gynocentrism. Sports are not a gift to males. They are a necessity to prevent damage resultant from the buildup of energy and frustration, which is a byproduct of devaluation and expendability. Yes, watch the game and act like a hygienically challenged caveman with the vocabulary of an uneducated sailor. And after the game is over, you have chores to do. Then you need to hurry up and get to bed so you can get up and go earn that paycheck tomorrow. Mama needs new shoes. Moreover, sports is a misery loves company platform where whipped males try to recruit other males, especially single, free males, into becoming sports fanatics as a way to still have ties to the land of the free male. And it's funny how many males just assume that all other males are members of this I am a slave to females and find temporary respite in football club. Guys will always ask me, "Hey, did you see the game?" Or, "Hey, do you know what the score of the game is so far?" Or, "Who do you want to win the game?" Yeah, like I follow sports to the nanosecond just so I can inform whipped males of the score in the third quarter. I have no clue. I am busy writing or contemplating the cosmos and the machinations of the universe. No, I didn't watch the game. I don't know any freaking scores. Who do I want to win? Males. I want you to turn your back on male disposability and lecherous females and liberate yourself from gynocentrism. That's who I want to win. You. And once you do liberate yourself, you probably won't have much need for sports anymore. Still, it's just sad how males assume that all males are the same and all take refuge in sports. No. Some of us are liberating ourselves above sports and gynocentrism and devaluation. Why don't you join us up here? It's amazing. I postulate that males hunt for the same reason. Hunting is far more expensive than simply hitting up the local supermarket when they need some chow. Hunting is a release, a foray into the wild freedom of nature that comes courtesy of killing unarmed animals. And some males, when they've had enough, go a step further. They totally reject society and its gynocentric devaluing and disposal of males, and they simply disappear into the wild. Some never to be heard from again. Into the Wild is a book which details such a case. Some males go to this extreme to rediscover themselves, or to search for meaning to their existence, or to find a different definition of what it is to be male beyond what they are fed in pop culture and media at the behest of the vaginisty. Me? I vent frustration over male devaluation into trying to rescue males and promote liberation from disposability by peddling my red pills. So, I do not mean to sully sports or the fans of it, nor do I apologize for my observations herein. Indeed, there are many males, even MGTOW, who genuinely enjoy sports, and that's great. Still, I can't help but observe that the bread and butter of the sports fans' base is comprised of emasculated whipped males who have a list of female-issued chores to do after the game is over. And I know that I'm not alone in this simple observation of sports as a blow-off valve, a tool of control to direct male energy for those few moments when they are not digging ditches or opening doors for ladies. I suppose the sports argument could be made regarding any male venue, lifting weights, jacking up diesel trucks, or congregating around tools in the garage. It's all an escape into a realm where they can feel at ease, with less politically correct eggshells to walk on. I mean, why does the husband find a '66 Chevelle in a junkyard or farm field and tow it home? Because it represents a rediscovery of youth and freedom before he was chained to responsibility and servitude, a time and place which is beyond gynocentrism. Yet the freedom that he hoped to recapture usually never happens, and after he's had enough of the wife ceaselessly clucking and nagging at him to get rid of that pile of junk cluttering the driveway, he eventually concedes and calls the wrecker to come and haul away this hunk of metal that represented his freedom rediscovery. And after which he goes back inside the house and quickly tries to glean game highlights as he passes the TV on his way to do his chores. Hey man, do you know the score of the game so far? Why, yes, actually I do. Males, 0. Gynocentrism, 7 billion, and growing. My friends, stand with me, live free.